Welcome to the digital airways of Stereophonic. I'm Dan Kimpel. With this ongoing conversation series, we present the people, personalities, and perspectives of the modern music business through conversations with those in the spotlight and behind the scenes. It is our objective to entertain and inform you as we reveal tips and tales from deep inside the music industry. Among the most accomplished mixing engineers in modern music, and certainly one of the busiest. 17-time Grammy winner Manny Maroquin possesses prodigious skills and an astonishing resume. Whitney Houston, Bruno Mars, Paramore, Pusha T, Rihanna, Kendrick Lamar, and many more. Pop, Latin, hip-hop, electronica, and beyond. His mastery of multiple genres has propelled him into the upper stratospheres of his profession. Let's head to Larrabee Studios and meet this mighty mixer. Manny, nice to see you.
Nice to see you guys. Thank you.
You know,
Thank you for having me.
This is our 5th season of Stereophonic, and you have been on our list.
Oh my gosh!
All through every single season, and now with our reboot, etc. If I can grab a quote from a project you worked on, we just say it's about damn time.
There you go.
So there you are.
Oh man, I'm so happy to be here. Always honored to talk about what we love to do, anytime, any place. So I'm glad we're doing that out of Studio 5 at Larrabee.
Yeah, Larrabee. What a deep history. So as I understand, the original Larrabee on Larrabee Street in WeHo, that was at one point Jerry Gotham was the owner of that studio.
Yep. I believe he was the original owner, and then the Mills family came over, and then Kevin, his son, was a stockbroker, hated his job in San Francisco, came out. He was about to sell the studio, his dad, and he took a loan. Next thing you know, he made it what it is today. At that point, commercial studios were slightly different, right? They were owned by the record labels. There was very few independent recording studios and that was the golden era for all these rooms. And I feel like Kevin Mills played a very important role in getting these studios to be what they became, right? And then, everything has a beginning, middle, and end. When I was about 21, there were 75, 80 studios, commercial studios in LA. And man, I think there's less than 5, 7, maybe 8 now. So it's, unfortunately, they're dying, but here we are. We're trying to keep the legacy going,
This is a beautiful studio. We were in the live room a little earlier before we did the interview, and that live room looks astonishing.
Oh, man, it's beautiful. In every room, we have 7 rooms. Every room has its own character, and its own sound, obviously with the equipment and all, but you walk into every room, and all our clients, they prefer, some love Studio 6, others think it's too big, others love Studio 4, and that's the only place they'll work in. So it's pretty cool because it's not just the same, vibe. So you can really be creative.
As you mentioned to us in our pre-interview, you became a studio owner sort of by default.
Yeah. Kevin was like, hey, man, I think I'm going to sell. Like, what to sell what? Larrabee. I'm like, what? No, you're not going to sell Larrabee. No, I'm serious. I think it's, the record industry is like, I see it. It's Titanic. I'm gone. I'm like, well, all right, man. It's like, do you want to buy it? I'm like, no, I'm a studio rat. I'm not a studio owner. It's like, well, Manny, if I sell it, someone's going to come and take over this room, the original Giorgio Moroder room. I'm like, come again? It's like, all right, well, I guess I'll buy it then, Kevin. Shoot, all right. And that's kind of how I became a studio owner over time. I was so afraid because I knew nothing about business. I just wanted to mix records for the rest of my life. And I would call him and ask him, hey, man, what's a P&L? Why are we paying taxes for this or that? But, quickly I learned the art of, at least managing the studio and having a good team around you. I never wanted to be a part of a studio, being the studio owner. So I'm lucky and blessed to have a great team around me, and they do what, Mike's been here for 30 years. He does what he was doing when Kevin was here. So, and I'm still able to be creative in the studio. And the advantage I have is I can use multiple rooms for different sounds. I'm not in the box. I don't know, there's maybe half a dozen of us left that are not in the box. So I still kind of perform the mix like the old school, way of doing it. Like grab a fader and perform it, and then turn the automation on and start moving faders. And I go back and forth from doing rides on, in the box to on the desk to outboard gear, the console. I haven't changed, since I started. And I think that that's part of the reason why, I like having multiple rooms, because if I have one room and I can open as unlimited sessions in the same room, I mean, I've been in Studio 2 at Larrabee for over 22, 23, 24 years. I don't know if I would have been able to be there that long, because I would stare at the same freaking computer screen, same wall, same everything. But now I can go to different rooms and have to work, because now it's a different sounding room. And so you're always aware. You're always you always have your guard up. You're never comfortable, and I always say the moment you're comfortable, that's where you got to pinch yourself. You got to oh shit, I shouldn't be. You should be uncomfortable and get comfortable with being uncomfortable, or else you just go through the motions, because my output is I'm working on so much stuff. I would just kind of go through the motions, and I wouldn't put my heart and soul into every song that I work on, and you have to. You really have to.
I love that. When you're mixing, with whom are you interacting the most? Is it with producers? Is it with the labels? Is it with artists? Is it different every project?
It's definitely different every project. Like right now we're doing working on the Barbie soundtrack. And I'm dealing with artists that I've dealt with in the past on their albums, but now it's the A&R. It's it's the president of the label. I'm working on another group, Calabasas, that it's the main producer, executive producer. So every project is different. I get calls from managers, labels, producers, artists themselves. So that's the beauty of what we do, man. It's like there's no. I like continuity, and I like to come in at this time and leave hopefully by that time. Having structure, because there's no structure once you're in it. Like you're in a freaking whirlwind of emotions. They change by the minute too. I always Dave Pensado and I would always joke at 1 o'clock when you start the mix, you feel like you're the greatest mixer in the world, right? By 4 o'clock, you're the shittiest mixer in the world, and it goes back, up and down within one song, right? So you kind of get used to those emotions and you ride them out, right? And I feel like that's why having structure as a mixer is so important, because the rest of it is not. There's no structure.
I like the concept of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, though. I think there's a lot to be said for that piece of wisdom right there. When projects must come to you to mix, which have a multitude of producers on them already.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about something like Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone, which is a record I really love. And I know you mixed that record. And there are a lot of different producers on it. Is it your job in some ways to unify the sounds of that?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah. When you have someone like Post, and Lou Bell is like his main producer, so thankfully that project has Lou to kind of give it a sound. My job is to kind of glue it all up, and with different sounds, different producers, different styles. Post is a very interesting artist because he's the first artist that we can say he's a genre-less artist, if you think about it. Is he hip hop? Yes, but he doesn't rap. So is it hip hop? But it is. Is it pop? Yeah, because it's memorable and it's you can hum the melodies. So it is popular. Is it alternative? Not really, but he does play guitar and he does a lot of Nirvana cover. So it's everything, but no specific genre, right? So I do feel like he's a genre-less artist, and there's very few of those. So his timing was right, and I think he's opened up the floodgates to so many artists that can be whatever they want to be, regardless of a genre. And I feel like that's why I feel like that's a big reason why he connected to a mass audience in the streaming world. And he's a great, amazing songwriter.
The songs are just phenomenal. There's such a great disconnect sometimes between the visual and the sweetness of the tone and the beauty of the nakedness of the emotion, which I think is so effective.
Yeah.
So there's a music streaming service which does not speak its name here, but there is a playlist of 2,351 tracks that you mixed.
Really? That's crazy.
And I listened to every one. But I just the number blew me out of the water.
You know, I was a few years ago, my manager and I were, I don't know, we had maybe a little too much wine or tequila, and we're like, how many songs have I worked on? And we started doing the math of, okay, there's 365 days a year. If you do this I think at the time, I think it was like 17,000 or something. That was like 5 years ago. So I'm probably up to like 22,000 or who knows. A lot. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that playlist has to catch up now.
Oh, man. You know, Apple, they're doing creator playlists where they have some producers and engineers, and they asked me to do one. And I was like, okay, how long does it need to be? Because this could get out of hand. This could be easily, a few thousand hours. But, I think I've been blessed and lucky and a little talent. I mean, you got to check all those boxes, right? And look, I love what I do. I feel, my clients feel that love that I have for their baby. I'm an expensive babysitter. I promise I will change the diapers and feed your baby the best possible way. And I think they feel that, sometimes being in person, other times hearing the love that I try to put on there. I've always approached everything with a very emotional, approach as opposed to, hey, I want it to sound good. I want to just sound right. I never, ever took that approach about sounding right. I just wanted it to feel good. I have songs that I remember the way they made me feel as I was working on them 20 years ago. I'll play them and I get the same emotion. I remember songs that I was trying to impress maybe Jimmy Iovine or something, and today they sound like shit. Sounds change, right? I mean,
sure.
Emotions don't, and I really try to take that approach. Now, it's a very brave thing to do because you risk not sounding right, and some people may perceive that as not right. So in the process, you're putting you're pretty vulnerable into them not liking your work. And it took me years to be that brave to like, you know what, I'm just going to follow this, and whatever happens, happens. If I lose a client here and there, so be it. And it was a very conscious decision early in my career, But it's a brave one as a young mixer trying to get work in the industry.
Yeah. Your backstory is so interesting. Just recapping it briefly, but you came to the United States, I believe, age 9 with your sister and your mom. From Guatemala. Very, very tempestuous political time in Guatemala at that time, and you arrived here in beautiful Los Angeles.
Yeah, man. My mom was like, "Oh, we're going to Disneyland." We're like, "Yeah, great." We packed all our shit and put it in the closet. And we're like, "Why are we packing this room?" Like, "Oh no, we're gonna be there for a couple months." We land, and the first thing I saw was the theme restaurant, LAX. Yeah, which was like, wow, right? As a 9-year-old, first time on an airplane, I think I almost got airsick. I had a little bag. I remember I didn't throw up, thankfully, but I got so sick, and we landed, and we're like, I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday. By Monday, we were enrolled in school. My sister and I were like, what the hell? This is like, we're going to LA. This is Cali, vacation, beach. We're like in school. She's like, if you learn how to speak English, you'll get really good jobs back in Guatemala. We're like, We're 9. I'm 9. My sister's 12. We're not thinking about work. Oh man, it took us I think 6 months before we made it to Disneyland. And she's like, I got news for you. We're never going back. We're like, what? I mean, listen, some of the things that I saw as a kid, I mean, no kid should ever see that stuff, and I think that's part of my approach, man. I always say mentally, I'm like, man, I'm still on vacation. It doesn't matter what you tell me. You tell me I'm the suckiest mixer in the world, but guess what? I'm on vacation. You're not. So gives me that mental edge to survive the ups and downs of the industry. Mental health, right? It helps with my mental health. It's so funny because we never talk about it. Mixers, engineers, we never talk about mental health, right? Producers, but we get turned down so much. And if you're not mentally strong, then gosh, it could be a tough road ahead.
We think about with artists probably more than we would think about from your side, but you've definitely got a point with that. So as I understand, you attended John Burroughs High School before moving to prestigious Alexander Hamilton High School.
Yeah.
That was before he was a Broadway star.
Yeah.
And you had you were a drummer, and you had some rather prestigious, later too soon to be prestigious classmates, one of whom was a drummer, correct?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, Abe Laborio, that he crushed my drumming dreams. And we're good friends today, and I just hung out with his brother and dad, which is, the dad is the greatest bass player alive. So they would come and jam at lunchtime. It was so spoiled. But he killed my drumming career. I thought I was a pretty good drummer, and I was for, being, started playing when I was super young. But when you see someone like Abe, and you realize, man, come on, I suck. He was amazing at 15, 14 years old. And at that point, we had to check boxes like major, minor, and all that. And majors like drums, I'm thinking of Abe. I'm like, no. And I go down. Music production, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to check that box. And they had a small studio. They had a little Ramsa board, 16 by 8, a Rio to Rio 8-track, quarter inch. And then we had 4 or 5 different MIDI stations. So we put headphones on and we programmed beats and play chords. That was like the best class. And then David Sears, he just recently retired from the Grammy Foundation. He puts the headphones on, listens to the beat I had just created with chords and bass line and probably really bad. Then he goes, you got to mix it. And that's the first time I heard what that meant. I mean, I never heard that word, actually. He's like, oh, here. And he explained it to me. And that, just at that very moment, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. That's it. And from that moment on, at 15, that's all I put my attention. My every ounce of energy was towards mixing. I didn't even know you could make money mixing. The stereotype at the time is, the older dude with a ponytail and a cigarette and like hair like this. No one really looked like me. I barely spoke. I'd learned English 5 years before that. So that was kind of like just following my gut again. I don't know if that. Again, I didn't know you could make money. I didn't know it was a career. Yeah. And made it to the studio, and every classic story happened to me where, the assistant engineer doesn't show up and I get thrown in. The engineer wants to go on a date on a Friday. I'm an assistant at the time. I get like, hey, you want to do a rough mix? I'm like, hell yeah. And then they hired me to mix the album, and just all the classic stories happen, and I was there. I was prepared, and I worked my ass off. I was the first one there and the last one to leave. One thing is, no one ever handed me anything, man. And, when we talk to like younger engineers, I always say the same thing. It's like, look, it ain't sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. It's the complete opposite. So if you're looking for that, this is the wrong place to be in. Because you got to put the work in, and I did. I was very committed, very disciplined, and man, I just had the blinders on. Let's go.
I noted one amongst your classmates was Asdru Sierra.
Yeah.
Who along with Ulysses and Will Dog and Jiro put together Ozomatli, which is like an institution in Los Angeles. That's such a great
that was
band.
a jam band at Hamilton. We were all jamming, and then they went ahead and called it Ozomatli. Asdru's the godfather of one of my kids. That's how close we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw them play just a private event a couple weeks ago, and they sounded.
Nice. Oh man,
that groove is deep, very deep.
What, almost 30 years now together?
27 years.
27.
They just celebrated their 27th anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. But you're so young. How did?
I was 10 years old.
Technically, you mentioned that you mix on monitors, right? Mm-hmm. Are we using large monitors or NS10s?
Yeah, I'm still an NS10 guy. NS10 with a sub. That's in every room, so I'm still on that. Every once in a while, I'll go upstairs if I'm doing a clubby type of big type of joint. We have Augsburgers with TAT components, with a dome tweeter. And then I got, several mid-size speakers. I got the Neumanns, I got the Barefoot, and they're all spread out throughout the building. And then I know we were talking about headphones before.
Yes.
Listen, the headphones that I worked on, they become my now it's my NS10s and the headphones. And the beauty about my headphones is I can just put them in my bag. I can travel with those. I can't put the NS10s in my bag. Well, I guess I can. So it's been, I actually mix on those, Yeah. So it's incredible that if you had, I don't think I would have ever imagined mixing on headphones, but I am, and they sound great. I know them very well. So between the NS10s with maybe the main monitors and my headphones, that's all I need.
Sure. So there's two versions of the Odyssey, the 500s and also the 100. Those 100s just came out. I understand. The NAMM show. Yeah.
Yeah. And they listen. I don't know if you can find a better headphone for that price point.
We can't find any. We're supposed to be getting some. I think they're backed up.
It's crazy because they, I don't think, if you think about it, there's not a lot of headphone companies that have catered to professionals, right? There's not. Maybe I'm missing out. But, you say, the Sony's is or Sennheisers or whatever headphone you're into, they're good and you kind of work on them just because you know them. But this was, I feel like, one of the only that I know of headphones that was created by someone that's making records. You know what I'm saying? Not a consumer. It's a different mentality. Look, they're not going to make money off of this, no matter how much you sell them, because there's the market share is not there, right? So I got to give Odyssey so much credit for them believing in this, and I don't think they thought they were going to sell any, and then they got these orders from like everyone and they weren't prepared. So now it's like, supply chain and we're back ordered and this. I'm like, that's good. I mean, I think they built like 400 or something, which is nothing for them, So it's good to prove them wrong.
Good.
Because now I have people, there's not a lot of Latin American representing this field, right? So they hopefully see me as, okay, I'm here, I'm, looking out for them. So Latin America is, it's like they all want the headphone now. And so it's been good. And we're going to come out with the closed back next, just to be able to use them in the studio. And but they're great. I mean, I can't wait for you guys to listen.
I can't wait to hear.
Oh, man.
I can't wait to hear.
It changed my life, my mixing life, yeah.
We'll be right back. This season of Stereophonic is sponsored by Isotope, makers of innovative audio products that inspire and enable people to be creative. Visit isotope.com to learn about award-winning audio plugins and use the code STORY10 to get an extra 10% off. We are also sponsored by Odyssey. Trusted by professionals all over the world, Odyssey is uncompromised audio. Visit odyssey.com. work across genres. That's one of your big things. I read a quote from you. You said you work from Leanne Rhymes to Busta Rhymes, which I thought was pretty
Man,
good.
I say that nowadays, and kids are like, huh? Who? I got to come up with a better one.
Did you foretell how enormous and influential Latin music would come across global parameters?
Never. I would have never imagined that. When listen, in Latin America, it's very segregated. I mean, you have from even Puerto Ricans don't like Dominicans, like Cuba's like right next door. They don't, three countries that just don't like each other's music. And, and then you open up Central America. Salvadorians don't like Guatemalans. Guatemalans are neutral, but they don't like Mexicans and Argentines. Everyone's got beef with each other, especially with music, because music is so part of our culture. So I never in a million years imagined a Rosalia from Spain, not even on this side of the continent, going to Colombia and going to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Mexico. And all of a sudden, we talked about Post being a genreless artist. All of a sudden, Latin music has no borders now. You have Rosalia doing some reggaeton, and nobody questions it. Nobody's like, well, she can't do reggaeton because she's not from this place. And to me, I never imagined that would happen in my lifetime, to be honest with you. So for me, being 1,000% Latin, it's such an amazing thing to witness. It's historic. And thankfully for, the accessibility, like streaming and all that has made it possible, right?
Yeah.
And again, going back to genreless, man, you get an Argentine tango artist. I just worked with this artist from Argentina that sounds like she's from Mexico or like, yeah. So it's really refreshing and really cool to see, and that's opening up. And that is the reason why Latin music is so big, because there's so many different cultures and so many different countries. Like I have a playlist at my restaurant it's a cumbia playlist. Cumbia's very specific rhythm, right? But you have cumbias from Mexico, from Colombia, from Panama, from El Salvador, from Argentina. You got Peruvian, Caribbean. I mean, and they're all cumbias. They all fall under. But I will do a playlist just on different cumbias from all over the world. And people think it's Latin music. Yeah, which it is, but they're all cumbias. And now you have salsa, you have merengue, you have bachata, you have all these subgenres, right? But that's how rich Latin music is, where you have one genre and subtle, different rhythms and different cadences, different instrumentation. Some you land on the two, some you land on the one, and you would think from the third grader in the room that they're all cumbias, they're all the same, But it's beautiful to hear the subtle differences.
You mentioned a restaurant, so that's verse. You have a restaurant. So of course, because I'm obsessive with research, I looked at the wine list and my head exploded. It's just. I don't think I've ever seen a wine list like that. List.
I got to tell you this because this is incredible. You can't make this up. So I'm a big wine guy. I've been drinking for a long time, collecting. Every vacation we took as a family, it would be around a wine region, right? We pick here, let's go there because there's a wine region, and when we're wine regions, there's usually really good restaurants, right? So, but a year and a half ago, we were on our holiday, Christmas holiday, and we were in Italy, and we're riding the train down from Venice to Florence. And I'm sitting next to my son. He's 20 years old at the time. And I said, hey man, can you help me? Because he's really good with spreadsheets. I'm like, I need a spreadsheet because now I'm going to take over this wine list because I've hired people and, it's been good, but it's not like from here. She's like, I need it to have personality, my personality, whether it works or it doesn't. And I go, can you help me with just putting a list together and vintages and good vintages from different regions of the world. And we'll start with regions that we've been to so that it's a little personal, right? Little did I know, this kid, my 20-year-old son at the time, turned 21. He is now he is one of the youngest, if not the youngest certified sommelier in the country. So my son is the reason why we have this wine list is because he's curating it. He just turned 22. It just blows my mind. And this guy has a photographic memory with wines that he's tried and had. And so I'm gonna tell him he's gonna be very happy when I tell him someone noticed the wine list.
You have there's some very obscure regions and things, but it was sobering, if you will, to mix a metaphor in there to read the wine list. Food and music. Two related. I mean, I guess you can relate them across a certain board, right?
How many producers and musicians I met over the years that are foodies and chefs and vice versa. I met so many chefs, like world famous chefs, that all they want to do is they want to come to the studio and hang with me. They're fanatics, music fanatics. And it's, and I can see that because my days off, that's all I did. I would cook, I'm not very, very good, but that was a passion. Yeah. So, about 7 years ago, I had this am I mixing for the rest of my life? Is this my calling? I did say that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But at some point, you reach that, that bell curve and you're on top of it and you think, oh shit, now I'm looking down. Before I was like going up, and like, now I'm like maybe going down. So is this really what the only thing I'm going to do my entire life? I don't know if it was a midlife crisis. I did not get a Porsche, so maybe not. Maybe I'm still haven't hit it yet. But I definitely was going through that. Let's explore. Let's internally. This, every parent tells you, hey, follow your passions, right? Everyone's like, write your passions down and follow them. And I honestly did that. Music that's my life. I mean, I'm a bigger music fan today than I've ever been. I just talked about wines, picking regions in the world with wines and for wine and food. So those three things. There's a restaurant right next door that became available, and I was going to be the music guy. I was supposed to be the music guy. And next thing you know, instead of being in the trunk of a Suburban, now I'm in the driver's seat, Like, oh shit, how did I get here? I picked the two most intense and hardest industries to pick, music and restaurants. But here we are. My goal was, hey, I want to build a studio big enough to put a restaurant in it. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. That's what it is. And it's finally connecting. I mean, the timing, I see the silver lining in it, but we opened 3 months before COVID hit. And it was probably the best thing that happened to us, honestly. Like, I don't think it would have been the same if we had just stayed open without a pandemic. So that was, good things came out of that for me. And that was, it gave me a chance to educate myself on that business now, knowing hospitality, analytics, how to run a business like that. So I took 1.5 years and went to school, online. So educated myself on how I would want to run a restaurant. And now I'm still the acting GM. I'm a mixer in the GM in the restaurant, so go figure. I don't recommend that.
I love you had Ozo Motley play your opening.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You had to play. Were you like the mean club owner that told him to turn down and wouldn't give him drinks?
I'm like the opposite. I'm like, man, come on, man. There was this guy Mauricio. He was playing on a Wednesday night, and I walked in. I'm like, the next day I called him. I'm like, hey, man, you're playing like we're in freaking Cabo in Hawaii, and and I know you. You're a shredder. You're a fucking badass. Amp up your acoustic. Play some freaking Nirvana because I know you love Nirvana. Play some Led Zeppelin, and I don't care if people like it or not. Just do you. Play you. The next time he played, he's shredding. He's playing freaking Led Zeppelin and freaking. I think he played an Iron Maiden song or something like. And everyone loved it, And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what we want. We don't want a resort-like feel. No, I want you guys, every player that goes through Verse, because it is a live music venue, I want them just to be themselves, And if people don't like it, then that's okay too. But I just want you to be yourself, and that's the world we come from. Now, a restaurateur that has no musical background would say, you should play with your perception of what my demo and, my customers are going to like. I think we're wrong 90% of the time when we try to guess what you like, even though I don't know you. So you're going to fail. I'm guaranteed you're going to fail. So I'm like, we're going to do it the other way. We're going to teach our customers that when you come here, you have to come with an open mind, and that's knock on wood,
Seems to be working.
As I knock on the headphones, but I want to knock on my head. But yeah, it's working, and it's very authentic. The reason why it's working is I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So like beginner's luck, I guess. I don't know.
No Margaritaville played in your in your venue.
I have this thing, if you recognize a song, like I do all the playlists, like you're not going to hear, although I love Coltrane and Miles and all that, but I want to, you're not going to hear Miles or Coltrane when you're there. And that means that you're not going to hear pop music either. And if it's good, I mean, it's just quality stuff. Not that obviously they're not. I just want to, it's called verse, not because it's a verse in a song, but we have a bookcase with old books. We have poets, pictures of poets in the bathrooms that you wouldn't recognize that they're poets, or you just would see it and not even think about it. But for us, for me especially, I wanted people that when they come in, we have a glossary in our menu. I want you to learn something, one thing, just one thing. Could be aguachile. What the hell is aguachile? Well, that's a cilantro-based sauce that you put on top of crudo. Or we have wine descriptions. We have libation descriptions. We have music stuff, and it's a verse and a poem. And so we have hidden poems everywhere in our menu. So we want to encourage, just education. You just hopefully leaving the restaurant learning one or two things. That's it. Simple as that. And that's why music is the same way. I want to see phones like with Shazamming, like, well, I like this. What is this? Let me Shazam it. And it happens all the time. And they'll discover an artist that they may not have been exposed to in the past. So
one of the challenges that I have to overcome, and I'm not alone in this, is a certain generational thing, being in this business for a long time as I am. Stay current. Mm-hmm. Stay current. And I work with people, and I have worked with people who are very dismissive of things. And I don't find that I can't be that way, because it's my job to understand what's coming up, what's coming next. So I listen to your playlist of 2,351 songs. I hear new artists. I hear like Mae Miller. I didn't know her. I'd hear Mimi Webb. I hear things coming out of the UK that are really, really soulful, as they tend to be. How do you stay current?
It's a state of mind, right? So, quick story. I want to say 20 years ago, 18 years ago, first time I met Alicia Keys in New York. First song, Jane Doe, I remember this song, with Brian McKnight. I'm at Sony Studios in New York, and I mix the song. She comes in around 8, 9. First time I met her, new artist. I play her the song, the mix, and she loved it. She's like, oh my gosh, this is great. This first song, this is the beginning of an amazing, artist makes a relationship. She goes, hey, I love it, but there's something on my vocal. There's something that I can't, I can't pick up. So I looked at the channel strip, everything I had. I'm like, oh, how about this? And I would pop the EQ out. No, put it back in. Okay, how about this? So I would take things off, and she's like, no, everything's fine. I love the way it sounds. And I remember that the first thing I would do when I came in, if I heard a funny flat or sharp note, I would fix it, just out of habit. And we had the H3000, the Eventize. That was our auto-tune, right? And we pitch it and then punch, pitch, punch, pitch, punch, right? And that nowadays it's just auto-tune, right? Oh, you kids have it so easy. So we, and I forgot that I had corrected, in my opinion, some notes. And I said, oh, well, not that I was trying to keep it from her. I'm like, oh, I remember there was a couple of notes that I corrected. Let me play you the ones without, because we always have the main one, the untreated one. And she listens to it. She says, no, that's it. That's what I want. And then the 17-year-old girl teaches me one of the biggest lessons of my life. This kid teaches me that. She goes, look, when I sing to my audience, I want them to feel like I'm having a conversation with them. I don't speak perfect English, so therefore I want my imperfections. I was like, wow, just blew my mind, right? And I took that and I apply it to every mix today, where I don't want to sound perfect. I want to sound like it's, from the heart. And going to your question is like, how do you keep current, right? I listen for imperfections, and that I feel that in a way keeps you current, because you're not searching for perfection. When you search for perfection, you're going to automatically have tunnel vision, and you're going to miss out on a lot of things that are really, really cool that you should be paying attention to. But when you have this I got to be perfect mentality, you're cutting yourself short, because now you're going to go way past, you're not going to notice things that are not necessarily perfect. And those are the things that usually connect with people, and that emotion. So, Alicia Keys kind of opened my, my eyes to and ears to be humble, and to learning and discovering things that I would have never given it a chance. And I've learned more from those records than the ones that I thought were perfect. I know that's a very, interesting answer to your question. But,
No, it's great.
But that's, I like the imperfection of music.
I've been fortunate to have interviewed Bruno Mars as he was coming up, and he again talk about somebody who knows his old school music.
Yeah.
He came up with doo-wop and also traditional Hawaiian music. You worked with Bruno Mars, right?
Yeah.
Was that amazing? Or
I mean, incredible. I mean, it's so funny, because I met him when really, really early on, when he was just a songwriter. And he had this guy, Phil Lawrence, with him. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was Bruno, and then I thought Mars was Phil, because they were partners. I'm like, oh, it's Bruno and then Mars. This is crazy. And I for the longest time, I thought it was Bruno and Mars. So one day he goes, oh, we're playing, because they were in the band too. We're playing at Molly Malone's on Fairfax. So I'm like, I go see them, and there's like maybe 10 people, maybe even. Yeah, it was like half empty room, small venue, but empty room. So after the show, we're outside. He's smoking a cigarette. And he's like, man, you can tell he's disappointed that more people didn't show up. And he's like, and I'll never forget how he was just so deflated. Like, man, I don't know if this music thing is going to work out for me. I'm like, but when I was inside the venue watching him, I'm looking around thinking, what the fuck? This is one of the most talented individuals I have ever seen. I was like obsessed with him. And we're outside, and he's telling me that he may not pursue music anymore. I'm like thinking, no, are you out of your mind? No. Long story short, a few weeks go by, and I see him in the parking lot here in Larrabee. He had a session here, writing session. And he goes, hey, man, remember I was telling you I was going to quit the music industry? I'm like, yeah. It's like, I just got signed. And Atlantic just signed me as an artist. I'm like, no shit. Well, congrats. See, that's it, man. It's all gravy from here. And then, then he became Bruno Mars. So it's crazy how someone like him almost gave up. And I happen to think he's top 5 most talented artists that I've worked with, I mean, seeing him in action, it's like, it's genius moments, I'm just thankful just to be in the room, just to, be a witness, be a fly on the wall.
We're at a contentious time right now. You having come here from elsewhere, I'm sure you're well aware and are probably very sensitive to the fact that these are really tough times right now for a lot of people who are coming here or want to come here and be here. And there's a lot of weird energy and a lot of weird opinions around that. Mm-hmm. In what ways does your story differ from people coming here now, or in what ways is it similar?
I think everybody has their unique story, right? I think my story, the older I get, the more responsibility I feel like I have, because, I know it's going to sound weird, but I probably shouldn't be here right now, like against a lot of crazy odds. So, I think I'd like to think that someday I hope to just be an example of like, hey man, just don't give up. Just don't give up. It's not going to be easy, But if I can do it, at least you have someone, not the dude with the long hair and the ponytail and the cigarette. At least you have someone that looks like you and comes from that same background that did it. No one handed me anything, so some kids look up to it, and whether they make it in the business or whatever business, hopefully it'll give them some hope. I mean, and but again, everybody has their own journey, their own story, and I've been blessed enough to be in the room with some of the most talented individuals in the world, and if I can help that one kid, man, I know it sounds a little cliche, that one kid, and I'd love to help a bunch of fucking kids, So I feel like if we can be just a bit of inspiration, it's great. Not for me. Listen, I'm good, not for my ego, but just so hopefully it helps them become better. It's part of that ecosystem that we need more, individuals that want to help, and again, it's countries that 40 years later are starting to, just starting to. Yeah. I thought Guatemala was never gonna recover from that war. Yeah. Maybe a little hint of positivity right now. That's 40 years later, So I hope there's so many good role models, and I think that hopefully they attach to some of the good ones, because there's not a lot of people that come from that world,
I got you, man. I got you. Well, this has been an amazing conversation with you on every single level. Before we leave you, or you leave us, I think, we had a couple quick storyophonic questions. Is there a song that you can point to, not something that you worked on or something that you mixed, but a song that you heard that changed your life?
Wow. Stairway to Heaven. Yeah. I was playing drums. Bonham is like the best drummer, my biggest influence growing up. I never heard anything like that. I mean, drums like that, I was like, that's impossible. So Stairway to Heaven changed my life because my buddy in middle school, we must have been, 12-ish, he learned the song, and I'm like, well, fuck, I'm going to learn it on the drums, and we're going to play it at school. So every day for 2-3 hours a day after school, I would play along that song because I wanted to learn every lick, every hit, every tone, and it changed my life. At that moment, I was like, oh, I like playing drums, I'm just gonna keep going, and that was the beginning of my drumming short career before Abe
blew you out of the water.
But without that song, I think I probably wouldn't have taken it that seriously, Correct. So that definitely changed my life.
Thank you. Obviously, a restaurant owner, a studio owner, the preeminent mixing engineer that you are, is there any other alternative career path that you might have followed that would have fulfilled you?
Man, music is my life. I can't even, how they say there's no plan B, right? I never had a plan B. I just never had a plan B. I think the older I get, there's other passions like the restaurant. I mean, it's crazy to think that at my career, I've been mixing, for almost 30 years now. It blows my mind that after 30 years, I feel like I have a new career if I choose that route. Because right now the restaurant is hot and people are like, "Oh, open one here, this here." Now not that it's going to happen, but imagine having that confidence now of like, I don't have to rely on something anymore. Before, it's like when you're self-employed, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. Don't get me wrong, we're still looking for that next gig. Yeah. Always. I mean, it doesn't stop. Right? No matter how successful you are, you're always waiting for that next gig. I'll never forget the first time I didn't have a gig. I'm like, oh shit, what do I do now? Like the phone's not ringing. That's a scary thought. So as a self-employed individual, we're always looking for that. The confidence I have today and the fact that I have another career path if I choose to, I've become a better mixer. Because now I'm a confident mixer, right? Because I'm playing with house money now. Or before I was like, shit, I got to pay the bills. I got to do this. Now I'm like, and I feel like in the last 2 years, I feel personally, for me, maybe not externally, but I feel like I've worked with some of the biggest artists and have done some of the best work that I'm proud of. And I'm like, why is that? I mean, this is like the moment I thought at this age I was literally going to retire. You know, I thought I was going to be doing something else. But yet I'm having the best, the most fun, the best artists, the best clients, I think some of my best work in the studio. And I thank the restaurant for that, because the restaurant is work. It's like manual work. I'm bussing tables sometimes, you know, I'm like, it's work. And the best part about owning a restaurant is the people. I met some great people. The worst part about owning a restaurant is the people. I met some shitty people, you know. But then I come to the studio here and it's like, whatever, 100 steps, 50 steps away. Man, I'm in heaven here. And it's a reminder of why I got into the industry in the first place, right? And that reminder, I don't think it would have come the way it came if I didn't have the restaurant, you know? Yeah. And for that reason, I'm thankful for all the hard work at the restaurant, but it's not even about the restaurant. It's about me becoming a better mixer because of it, you know? And that's what I'm learning in my very young restaurateur life, you know, on how you can take certain things from other and bring it to the studio. And I'm always perfecting that emotion in the studio on any given song.
Great.
You know?
Manny Maroquin, we will go back to the artist cliche of we'll fix it in the mix. we'll leave you to fix it for us. We thank you so much for this moment, and thanks for being our guest on Stereophonic.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having
me. Thank you for listening to Stereophonic. Please follow us and rate us on your favorite listening platforms. Tune in for new shows and check out past episodes. Stereophonic is produced and mixed by Lindsay Tomasic. Our production director is Kim Strand. Our theme music is by Dadalite Mine. And I'm your host, Dan Kimbell.